Los Angeles was a place of tumultuous change in the early 1970s. The Chicano rights movement helped bring about a greater sense of empowerment and self-identity. Mainstream America was finally taking notice of Chicanos, and the arts were in the forefront of that attention. In East Los Angeles, 4 friends were pushing the limits of artistic expression in their community. Their non-conforming attitude reflected the spirit of the times, and the art they produced became an inspiration to a generation of younger artists. This talented group of 4 came to be known as Asco.
Hello. So you probably want to know about Asco. I guess that's why you're here.
The name Asco, which is Spanish for nausea, came from people's reactions to us personally, to the quality of the work, which dealt with violence and themes of depression.
Asco.
And then we had an exhibit, and I remember looking around the room and we were saying, oh my God, this work gives us Asco. That's what I remember.
It was my idea to call the exhibition Asco, and for the exhibition to be an exhibition of our worst works.
I don't remember who made up the name. It was either Willie or Harry.
And everyone thought it was the name of the group, and we decided to adopt it. And we therefore, empowered ourselves by using a negative term and creating a positive one out of it.
In 1968, Garfield High in East Los Angeles had the highest dropout rate in the nation. The educational system seemed to be more of an obstacle than a help to Chicano youth.
I first started out at elementary school as a monolingual Spanish-speaking child. My first day of school, I was instructed on how to make a dunce cap, which was immediately put on my head. I couldn't read the word that was spelled onto it, but the word was spelled Spanish. And they told me I could take that off when I learned to speak English. But I decided to learn English basically as a form of defense, which I could then later refine into a weapon of offense.
I had this homemaking class, and the teacher used to make the most ridiculous statements in class. She would say, well, all you little Mexicans better do well in this class, because someday you're all going to be cooking and cleaning for other people. And I used to think about it and go, what? This lady's nuts. I ain't going to cook for anybody.
Asco was actually a surrogate family for me at one point. It was also an alternative to a gang. It was also an alternative to other things that were negative in the community.
We lived within a 10-mile radius from each other, so it was easy for us to stay in contact with each other, and we related to a lot of the same things.
We were all having dialogues about different things that bothered us. The school that we went to was horrible. Teachers didn't teach. You would look at television, you'd never see yourself there, and if you did, you were a cholo or a chola. And you were like, where am I in this picture? I don't exist anywhere.
In 1970, 71, 72, everyone was penniless. So we had no space, artist space. Willie had a small garage behind his mother's house, which when it wasn't occupied by gang members, we would take it over.
In 1970, Harry Gamboa became the editor of Regeneración, a Chicano publication made up of articles, essays, and poetry that related to the Chicano community.
We all did our own thing during the daytime, and then at night we would do all the after hours working together in my garage pretty much most of the time.
And that's when we started meeting on a regular basis and brainstorming for images for this magazine. So we started hanging out like for hours on end and drawing together.
Our work evolved around each other, being around each other.
So all of us worked together on this publication called Regeneración. And we would drink coffee and talk about the world. And that's how we started to collaborate with one another.
I didn't have anyone I could talk to about what it was to be an artist or the issues I had in my mind, in my head. And I remember meeting up with Gronk at East LA College and sort of talking to him about different questions I had about art making. He sort of became one of my mentors.
With Patsy, we collaborated on a lot of photo type images. She utilized makeup, she utilized costuming to create images and portray hundreds of characters. So I think like a lot of different images that she created was breaking a lot of stereotypes, I believe, at that time. And with Harry, it was like inverting words and playing with language. It was challenging and exciting because I think Harry was trying to destroy the English language as we know it. And I believe he said that he was going to replace it with charred pieces of metal. Those kinds of ideas to me were exciting to work with a team of people that were challenging all kinds of different notions on the way we hear and see things.
I was probably known more for my murals in the 70s than probably any of the other members of Asco. And most of the time I would receive the commissions or the projects. I had Grunk assist me in quite a few mural projects.
The exciting thing I think for me was that Willie would start on one end, I would start on the other end, and all of a sudden the piece would merge right in the middle.
The end result was truly a collaboration rather than it's my job and he assisted me to execute my idea.
We sort of started our relationship with an element of trust, I believe, and we just allowed each other to work together and play music, but instead we used the brush to do that, and canvas or a wall.
The group's first documented performance was presented in 1971.
We decided to create an anti-war statement, anti-Vietnam War statement, by essentially recreating the Stations of the Cross.
And I played Jesus Christ carrying the cross. Grunk was Pontius Pilate.
I decided to dress up as sort of a zombie-like altar boy, wearing an actual animal skull on top of my head.
We basically paraded down Whittier Boulevard to the recruiting station and sort of collected people as we walked. People just started to follow us.
Before you knew it, we were all heading towards the Marine recruiting station, where we leaned up the cross, dumped all of our costumes and the popcorn, and we left it there, so it essentially blockaded the recruitment center. So for that particular day, there would be no more Chicanos joining the Marines and going off to Vietnam.
We used to have a Christmas parade in East LA on Whittier Boulevard. And due to the riots, the parade was taken away. There was no more Christmas parade. And so we, as a group, decided that we were going to bring back the parade. And we decided that we would become the float. We would dress up, and we were going to walk through Whittier Boulevard during Christmas time. All of a sudden, my mom goes, "Grunk's here," and you look out, and there's Grunk walking up to my front door, dressed in like layers of green chiffon.
Picture this.
He was a Christmas tree with all these Christmas bulbs hanging on him.
My face was a star, so this was this Christmas tree walking down the city street.
I was the Virgen of Guadalupe, but I recreated her. I wore like a black glittered outfit and these platform shoes.
Muralism was being approached in a very traditional way. We thought we would take it a step further, and with that idea, decided to just sort of have myself wear the mural and walk with it down the street so it could be a sort of a moving work of art.
And we did shock people. The policemen followed us. We had to have bodyguards. But I think it was a great success.
We took the same procession across the same path that we did the year before with the Stations of the Cross. My involvement with it this time was that I was interested in documenting it and presenting it elsewhere so that we could reach a broader audience. A similar situation occurred as with the Station of the Cross. We started picking up recruits, people who became interested in participating in this thing, and as opposed to being religious converts, this time the people were essentially art converts.
In the years that followed, Asco went on to produce a variety of street performances, including the first supper after a riot, which took place on a traffic island. Gronk, ever fascinated by the concept of producing temporal art, created the instant mural. A work of art was conceived on the spot by taping a person to a wall.
Well, in 1972, of course, I was, much younger and much more naive. And I decided that, I'd taken a stroll through the LA County Museum and realized that there was not a single Chicano exhibited in the museum. And so I decided just to pound on the door and to the curator. I had a brief discussion with him in which I asked him, why don't you exhibit Chicano artists? And he said, oh, Chicanos, they don't do art. They're in gangs.
That night, Asco returned and in gang fashion signed their names on the museum walls. They could now claim the LA County Museum as their own art piece.
We would create these images that implied a preceding and succeeding image, even though there wasn't any. And therefore the name No Movie came to represent those kind of images in which it implied that it was a scene out of a movie.
Coming out of a sense of poverty, you used whatever was available. Physically, we used ourselves to transform and become many different characters because, again, we were not in movies. We created our own. We called them no movies, making movies without the use of celluloid.
Into the 80s, under the direction of Gronk and Gamboa, Asco evolved into an artists collective that came to include a dozen or so participants. Each of the original Asco members have pursued productive careers in the arts. They are well regarded by arts establishments and by their peers. Their work has been staged, published, and exhibited nationally and internationally. Each have gained a certain degree of success in their fields, and their work continues to challenge and inspire other artists.
No gallery was going to call us up and say, we're going to give you a show, and we didn't wait around for that.
We went out and did things, and we used hit-and-run tactics. We didn't ask for permission to do any of our projects.
We didn't just sit around like complaining. We took action. We made it happen.
We were people of color who were out there doing things on the streets.
We were going to make art about what we were living at the time, about our dreams, and about anything we chose. We were not going to stay in a little box.